What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of JR and the Crew with the lovely Janet J. Rod, Jimmy G, and myself, JR. We have a great episode lined up for you guys, so stay tuned. All right, everybody, welcome back to JR and the Crew. Before I introduce this young, hot gentleman right here, I want to go through his rap sheet real quick, okay?
Wow.
Yeah, it's highlighted really big, dude. So, okay, look. So he started rapping at the age of 7 at parties and in rap battles. He was close to getting a gangster rap record, but after changing his life, he opened for a noted rock group at that time, which led him to getting signed to his first inspirational record deal that very night. His first 3 albums, Redeemed Hoodlum 1993, The Life of a Hoodlum in 1995, and The Hoodlum's Testimony in 1996, were characterized as being gangster rap albums, which was rare in the inspirational music scene at that time. Now, he has a Street Preacher, was nominated for the Rock Gospel Album Grammy Award. I would get into the long name here, bro, but it's a gospel, alpha, mega, funky, boogie, disco music.
You got it.
Was characterized by the guest you had KRS-One, hip hop legend, appeared in there. Also, you've been in lot of movies.
Right.
Your first major film role was in 2003, playing the role of Briggs, a rapper prisoner in the comedy romance motion picture The Fighting Temptations, which starred Cuba Gooding Jr. and Beyonce. You had a little part in there with, you were singing To the River with secular artists Lil Zane and Montel Jordan. Also, dude, I mean, I could go on and on and on. I mean, your rap sheet is huge,
They can look it up later.
But you know what? Crazy. Let's welcome Grammy nominated, Dove nominated.
No, Dove Award winner.
Dove Award winner. I'm sorry, bro.
It's all good.
That's the other guy. That was the other guy. That was the other guy.
That was last night's guest.
Yeah, sorry. Let's give it up for, I guess, my boy.
TBONE.
Man, there you go. You know what? I like that the best because at the end of the day, we're friends, man. We go back like bell bottoms and corduroys. So all that other stuff is cool, but man, I think the most beautiful thing here is that I'm amongst friends, so it's all good.
No, that's awesome, man. And you know what? I know you respected me in that way because I remember a long time ago, you put me in your car and you were like, "Hey, I want you to listen to this music," because you knew I kind of didn't like hip hop.
Yeah.
And I was like, Well, we'll get into it later, but you had a new flavor and stuff, so I know we've always respected each other's honesty.
Yes, sir. Yep.
So that's what made us become good friends and
Right,
stuff. So
right.
I love it. You know, thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. It's awesome.
So
Great to
our
be
next
here.
episode, next week, we're going to have... Thank you for coming.
That's it for today's show. Next week, look forward to tune in at the same time with...
That's all we needed. So, you know what? Tune in, guys. That's all we needed.
He got the ratings. He's good.
So, real quick, man, I know you've done it millions of times and stuff, but, you know, we've all know a little bit about your past. You know, you came up, I mean, dude, we have pictures of you and you from your weight loss. I mean, there's been a lot of changes.
Yeah.
A lot of
hairstyles.
A lot of hairstyles, from ponytails
to dookie braids, to cornrows, to bald, to all that stuff.
To playing Jesus in one of the Easter productions.
Oh, wow.
Well, I'm not going to say where. But tell us real quick where you're from and how did
my story, kind of my beginning stories of how I got into music and all that and the transformation in my life. Well, basically, I mean, I'm from San Francisco, California. That's where I was born and raised. Like I was telling your co-host here, I'm actually half Salvadorian, half Nicaraguense. So 100% Latino, but like I tell people in Latino America, I'm also 100% gringo because I was born here. So my father was from Nicaragua, mother from El Salvador. We were born and raised in the tough area of the Mission District, which is equivalent to say like, you know, East LA here in Los Angeles, kind of that tough Latin area. And obviously, you know, being raised there, you know, your heroes and the people you're looking up to are the pimps, the drug dealers, you know, the people that have all that money. It's a tough area. So I started rhyming when I was a kid because that's the music that we listened to there, but I also listened to salsa, bachata, merengue. I was raised in all that stuff. But, you know, what happened for me, my transformation in my life took place when I was about 17 years old. My sister was an active gang member. She had literally over 150 girls under her.
Wow.
They were called the Brown Angels. She had factories, drug factories all over California. So I kind of started seeing that whole thing. Then I started getting into it because all the OGs were like, "Yo, man, come hang out with us," and I was accepted right away. So I started getting into that. And then my younger sister as well. So it was kind of a whole pattern. But what ended up happening was we were raised Catholic. When I was about 17 years old, before all this started going, my parents actually moved and they became Christians, and they actually became pastors. So we were PKs, Philistine killers. I don't know if you know what that means, right? But so we were PKs. So the crazy thing is, like I tell people, I had one foot. I know all about the church, but I know all about the streets. We were in both worlds.
Exactly.
So I obviously started hanging out with the wrong people, started drug dealing, banging with them, doing all those things. But at a young age, I started seeing how horrible that life was, and the transformation that took place in my life was when one of my good friends named Ralphie, we were at a park, everyone was at a park, hanging out. This car from a rival gang comes through, they start throwing up signs. Next thing you know, everyone's running, they start shooting. Ralphie gets shot twice in the back and once in the chest. He lays on the ground, he's twitching in his own blood, and everyone's saying, "Get up, Ralphie, get up." And the words that most impacted me weren't his last words saying, "I'm gonna miss my mom." Those weren't his last words. His last words weren't, "God forgive me." They weren't, "I'm scared to die." None of that. The last words are what reminds me, actually, Jimmy's here, from something you guys had in the play when it said, "When you bury me deep, bury me with two guns at my side." It was kind of that whole thing from Straight from the Hood. Is he said, "Hey man, tell everyone to wear red at my funeral," and he died.
Wow.
So when I heard that, I was like, man, this is what we're dying for, this color. And I was left with this.
You being a PK just had a big influence in your life, because that actually guided you in a sense, because you were deep, but yet you were kind of like, you had that
exactly. And I wasn't so deep in because I was still young. I was getting deep into it. So what ended up happening, when that happened, that's when I said, man, there's got to be more to life to this. That's when the words of my parents kicked in, how they would tell me how God loved us, how, they were always there. My dad would hold my sister's head over the toilet when she was vomiting from drugs. There'd be drive-bys, all kinds of stuff. And so that's what showed me God's love. So when all that happened, I was like, guys are after me. My friends are dying or they're going to jail. I was like, what's next? And I'm like, there is no, I'm probably next. So that's when I went to my father's church, because the beautiful thing is I always remember how they told me these doors will always be open. We hate the sin, but we love the sinners, So I went to their church, and there was this preacher from Nicaragua that was speaking, and he was talking about the prodigal son, the story of the prodigal son. So when I heard that, it's like he started saying all these references that were just like impacted my life. And when he did the altar call that day, I went up to the altar, kneeled down, and that's when I became what I called my first record, a Redeemed Hoodlum. And ever since then, I dedicated my life to Christ, to doing better. But then at the same time, it was like when I first became a Christian, I was like, we're talking about 89, 90, there was nothing to listen to. So I was like, man, what am I going to listen to? Am I going to listen to, "Oh Lord Jesus, we thank," in my car, with the woofers, because with your hat. Yeah, exactly. I was like, man, I can't listen to this. And really back then it wasn't even underground because it didn't exist. I've been doing a show talking with the pioneers, the SFCs, Soup the Chemist, D-Boy, but this is all kind of like 90, this is like 80, 88, 89, which was Stephen Wiley, the pioneer of gospel hip hop, but everything else kind of came out in the early 90s. So when I first, became a Christian, that's what I did. I was a rapper, I did parties, I did all that. So I was like, what does a rapper do? A rapper talks about his life experiences. Exactly. So I went home and I started writing about what had happened in my life, and I had a friend named Dave Dina, who I always honor, because I'm like, he's the one that pushed me into the whole thing. He came to my house one day and he was like, yo man, these rhymes are dope. T, like, everybody knows you. And he was an ex-gang member who had gotten saved, and he still had his lowrider. He had spray painted John 3:16 on his car, and he was a crazy cat. So he was like, man, he had a street church called Praise Chapel. He was like, dude, this stuff would be dope in our church. You ought to come to our church. And I was like, I don't know, bro, I'm just writing it. I don't even know what it is. I'm like, but I'm just writing what's in my heart. He's like, man, you should come. I said, all right, cool, maybe one of these days, right? Yeah. So the crazy thing that happened is 2 weeks later, he comes to my house and he's like, man, we're excited about having you at my church. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. I go, yeah, we're gonna do that one of these days. He's like, nah, bro, we got the flyers all over town. You know what I mean? So I was like, are you kidding me? And so he's like, no. Wow. So I was like, man, I'm not ready to do. I don't know. So that didn't exist. Yeah. So he was like, man, you can't pull out now. We have this. So I was like, okay, I guess, I got to do it. So it was weird as heck, man, like nervous, to go into a church and take this music that never really brought in there, but it was exciting at the same time. But the one thing that I noticed was,
why do you think at that time it wasn't accepted though?
Let me say this real quick. Like I was saying, at the time it was crazy because the whole thing was, this was a music that was coming in that was very... First of all, it wasn't known. They weren't used to hearing hip-hop and gospel music. But the one thing that I noticed was, wow, man, this music is drawing people that would normally never come to church. Because I was known in my neighborhood. So here, and people love my stuff. So they were coming to church not to hear the pastor, not to go to church. They were here to hear me. They loved my stuff. They wanted to support. So we had gang members. We had club people. We had people from the neighborhood. And that was the first thing that I realized, like, wow, this music reaches people that would normally never come to church.
Right.
So that's kind of where everything started. I got prophesied over, man, God's going to use you to do this, that, the other. And that night I actually got to lead some of my very own friends, to Christ and help them change their life. Now, to answer your question, once that happened, that wasn't, we know there's Lecrae's and Andy Mineo's and all that stuff now. It's cool to be a gospel rapper now. You're filling up arenas. You got all these conferences. You got churches. Bro, in my day, it was the most unpopular thing to do because not only were we not accepted, we weren't accepted kind of from the church people, but the church was actually kicking us out. I was getting kicked out of churches because they were like, this is the devil's music. This comes from the street. So literally what I had to do, and to answer your question, why, it's because they didn't understand it. It was more conservative. Yeah, they were more conservative. It was something that they didn't understand. And I always say, it was kind of like gospel hip hop music is kind of like when Jesus was walking on the water to the disciples. What was the first thing they said? They said, man, it's an evil ghost or an evil spirit. And Jesus said, hold up. It's still me. I'm just coming at you in a way that you've never seen before because they'd never seen him walk on water. So that's what this is. It's the same. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. But the style and it's like I tell people, we don't fight wars, the U.S., the way we fought wars back in the day. Yeah, imagine us lining up, just going and they're shooting things and the front lines. Now it's like we got technology where they can press a button and blow up a certain building in Iraq. So the times have changed, but it was a really tough era, man, getting kicked out of churches. So what ended up happening was I started, I said, okay, if the church won't accept me, I'm going to go to the hood where they listen to the music. And we started taking our own stage and our own small sound system. And we would do concerts, like huge shows there with all these street people. But the crazy thing, JR, is who would show up? All the church kids. Why? Because all those church kids were prohibited to listen to that music, but that's what they spoke. That's the language. That was their music. Yeah. So they would sneak out and they would come to these concerts and we would, in a sense, have, all the youth groups there at the same time. So it was a crazy time, but I thank God that we were able to help pioneer a movement. Guys like SFC, Dynamic Twins, D-Boy, Stephen Wiley, PID, and now PID. Now you have this whole huge, it's a genre, man. I mean, back in our day, there was stores, Warehouse, Tower Records, all that, and then there was also Christian bookstores. So they would have our little section, gospel hip hop, in the side. Yeah, I remember. And in Tower Records, you'd have to struggle to find it, and now it's everywhere. So it's amazing to see the evolution of it and where it's coming. I just feel honored to be a part of it, to be one of those pioneers.
That's awesome too. And we're gonna take a quick break, but when we come back from that time that you said that it was so rough and hard to get going, let's talk about the time that it did take off when we come back, so that that made TBONE who he is.
Dope.
Yeah.
Let's get into it, y'all. We'll be right back after this.
And we're back with my boy TBONE on JR and the crew. And
yes, sir.
Yay!
So he just gave a mouthful of his past and how hip hop, Christian hip hop, gospel hip hop, and now let's talk about TBONE. TBONE. Who made TBONE? How'd you come out with that name? All that good stuff, you traveled big time.
Yeah, I get asked that question all the time. How did my name come about? And I tell people, originally back in the day, man, it was, everybody got street names. It was Bones, porque era flaquito. I was super skinny.
Wait. So, hold up. What he said.
Hold up.
Let me interpret.
Yeah, what he said.
What he just said. Subtitles. Can you see subtitles?
Let's give it up for Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy. What up, bro?
What's up, bro? It's my bro right there.
Yeah, man. So, man, it's like I was super, super skinny, and they called me Bones. And, and then eventually when I started rapping, I was like, okay, Bones is cool. But I heard somebody were like, T-Bone, and I was like, that's a little bit cooler. People ask her, is your name Theodore? Is that what the T stands for? You know what I mean? But I was like, no, it's just T-Bone because I was skinny. So I took, eventually over the years, I took the acronym T, Talking, B, Biblical, O-N-E, Talking Biblical 1. Ooh. You know what I mean? Wow. So I did that.
I didn't even know that, dude.
Yeah. I mean,
didn't know that.
A lot of people don't know that because it's not like that's something I've advertised or promoted, but I just started kind of using that over the years. And then it just became T-Bone, then it became Boney Bone Corleone, Bone Guevara, Boney Soprano, all these different aliases, So that's how the name came about. But for a while there, as Jimmy knows, I turned into Rump Roast. I was T-Bone, and then I turned into Rump Roast because I gained about 100 pounds.
Yeah, and that's when I met you.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, I was 300.
Skinny, I was like, what?
I was literally 300 pounds at one point.
Okay.
And and it was crazy.
Me. He was 3 of me.
Yeah, exactly. I was 3 Backstreet Boys basically. So what ended up happening was, about 10, 12 years ago, I said, I got to take over, take control of my life. Mm-hmm. And in 1 year, because I'm so driven, in 1 year, I lost 100 pounds and I haven't looked back since. So,
no, man, you look good, dude.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
I've been a part of your
journey.
Trying to catch up to you. I've been a part of your journey. I've seen your success. But I know that Jimmy has traveled with you a couple times, bro. So you got to tell me some stories, Jimmy, because I know we got some stories.
Yeah, Jimmy, let me introduce Jimmy first of all. I call him Jimmy Hoffa. He was with the crew for many years. We've been great friends for like 25, almost 30 years. And Jimmy actually traveled with me. I first met him at Victory Outreach here in La Puente. We became really close friends, but over the years, obviously, he's a drummer as well. He started drumming for me, traveled with me in and out. I mean, to this day, sometimes he still goes on shows with me. And then it's crazy. Then it evolutionized into where he did videos and also he started shooting music videos for me and all that stuff.
What?
So yeah, he's done everything.
We did the Marcos.
Oh yeah, Volare. That's right, you did. That's
Once again, thank you for coming, T1. I really appreciate, bro. The doors right there.
Let me say the last thing though. Okay, so he just started doing all that. Then that took an evolution of itself, and now he's doing my gardening as well. So it's amazing. I just love the fact he knows how to fix yards now, and man, my yard looks super clean. So we went from being friends to a drummer to videos to now gardening. It's amazing.
Man, excellent.
That's how we met. No, I remember as a kid growing up in church. We heard T-Bone and we were traveling with the play, and then we heard he was gonna open up for us, and he was gonna rap before the play. So we were all like jazzed because a lot of us didn't really care about hip hop, and then we liked his stuff. So ever since that day, the first day we met this dude is that we were staying at the hotel in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we were all hungry. Well, all of us didn't have a car, but there was about 40 of us that went through the drive-thru.
True story.
And Jack in the Box, and he was the leader of the pack.
But wait, we went through the drive-thru. You forgot we went through the drive-thru walking.
Yeah,
40 of us, so they would put enough weight on the thing to let you know someone's there.
And then everybody in the crew had hair, and he talked into everybody balding their hair.
I shaved everybody's hair.
He bald about 20 guys' hair.
Yeah. So that night, everybody came on stage, and we were like, "Will the real T-Bone please stand up?"
And about 20 guys were bald. And you know what? Ever since that day, I mean, man, it's been almost 30 years.
Yeah, literally 30 years.
And now we have
that's awesome.
my son and his daughter are exactly the same age. They're only 4 months apart.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's crazy how if anybody didn't think we had kids, it would be me and him.
Yeah.
Because we always done crazy stuff. We're always daredevils. But, I mean, I got to travel with him for... Man, at least about 5 years, and it was. I mean, the experience that I had with him was I can't get it nowhere. I mean, we were 15,000 people of playing drums. It was one thing to do plays, but it was another thing to do another passion, which was playing drums.
Yeah,
what I love to do, and with T-Bone, I mean, he's so respected.
Yeah, he's high energetic. The show's going.
Everybody respects him in the secular world, in the Christian industry. I mean, and I seen that, right there. And then it's cool for him to be your friend. I mean, this guy stood at my house, and when he comes to my house, I keep him humble, and he stays on the floor. And I give him a backpack and a pillow. No, but it's true, though. That's the kind of guy he is. Like, he don't care. Like, he'll just crash out, give him a little pillow, you know what I'm saying? And I mean, I don't.
As I'm getting older, though, my back and those floors are pretty hard. But I mean, I keep Jimmy humble too. I throw him a shovel when he comes to my house, and I'm like, "Bro, get to the backyard."
I'll show you guys. I'll show you guys pictures of both of our yards.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
let me share this story real quick though. What's crazy is my daughter's her name is Zara. the love of my life. She's actually an adopted little girl. She's black, Salvadorian, and Guatemalan. I'm Nicaraguan, Salvadorian. Obviously, my wife, black, Filipino, Mexican. So what ended up happening was when I brought her from Nashville, Tennessee, of all places that you would get a mixed girl like that, the very first, as soon as we landed, we see Mama and Papa. And then after that, right after the very first stop we made was with Jimmy and Val and Jace. Because Jace was, how old was Jace at the time?
He was 4 months.
4 months, and we sat Zara next to him, who was literally like 3 weeks
at BJ's.
Yeah, BJ's, and they sat right next to each other. We had a dinner together, and they've been friends ever since. So I mean, we go way back, man. It's pretty crazy.
So it's pre-marriage. You guys are doing pre-marriage.
Wow. What a story.
An arranged marriage, exactly.
Arranged marriage.
Okay, this is where I come in. Because I'm the juicy and the girly and the sexy questions.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, oh my gosh, your bio is intense.
Thank
and the
you.
energy that you bring when you first walked in here, I was like, oh my goodness, did we just all get a shot of B12? Just the energy. So,
thank you.
So thank you so much for coming and
you.
thank you for being on our show. So now, since you've been rapping since you were 7 years old, despite the fact that it's the Christian arena, it's still Hollywood, it's still music.
100%.
How have you kept yourself within that lane to stay focused?
You know, it hasn't always been easy, but I think the thing is, you know, when you realize, first of all, when you realize you have a calling, number one, and then number two, when you realize that what you're doing, it's bigger than you. For so many years, I was laser focused. You know, now it's like I'm towards the end of my career. Obviously, I mean, it's been 30 years. I'm not at that beginning of my career anymore. But you know, during those times, the thing that kept me driving was seeing, you know, these gang members come up and throw down their rags. Was seeing drug dealers come up, put their drugs. Was seeing people's lives transformed. Seeing, you know, grown men with tattoos weeping, you know, just seeing lives transformed and changed. That's when I was like, man, this is what this is all about, you know. So that's kind of what kept me focused and kept me going. And then also, you know, just the love for what I do. I mean, one thing Jimmy will tell you, that anybody that knows me will tell you, like the energy you're talking about. If I'm doing a concert and there's like what we did in the concert that we did with Whittier's, 1,000 people, I'm gonna give the same energy as I did when I was in Colombia in front of 100,000 people. You know, for me, it's not. I don't look at the crowd. I don't base myself on what the crowd is. I first of all say, man, I'm not doing this just for me. I'm doing this for him. But then secondly, it's a passion that I have and something that I love. So for me, I'm just not built to give 50 or 75% or to go on. Is there, you know, 75 people here or 75,000? To me, it's like I've always believed in giving it my all, and I'm a dreamer. And so one of the things I always try to tell people, man, is you can accomplish whatever you want. You know, I want to tell that to the people that are watching. As long as you can dream it, you can do it. The thing is, it takes hard work. It's like everything else. Kids nowadays want everything handed to them. But man, you know, making it in the music industry is like making it in the NBA, you know, field. There's a lot of competition. It's like TV. It's like, you know, being a doctor, whatever. You got to work hard. You got to study and you got to grind. And people a lot of times look at our lives and they say, man, your life is easy. You get on a plane. They see me on Instagram. We're living this life. But they don't. I'm like, man, you work 8 hours a day. I work 23 hours a day. There's times where I don't even sleep, you know. So it's a grind, but that's like I'm saying, but you can do anything that you want to do. You just have to be persistent. And I'll tell you, I had 1,000 doors slammed in my face telling me I wasn't good enough. I didn't have the look. I didn't have this, but I had to believe in myself. And then on top of that, like I tell people, you know what, man, don't give up, because you might be at 998 doors slammed in your face. You can't see the future, but maybe at 1,005 doors, that's the door that's going to open. And you're at 998 and it's at 1,005 where the door's going to open, but you're quitting because you've been told 998 times that you can't do it. You got to keep saying, man, you know what? In one day, it's eventually going to happen. Absolutely. I mean, obviously, you also have to understand, am I gifted at this? You can't come on a show like, oh, I want to be a singer. And you're like, if I eat,
you go to America got talent for that.
Exactly. I mean, so you have to kind of like, you have to understand that as well. And I always tell people, it's 100% talent, but it's 100% about, you know, 50% talent, 50% about who you know. You can know everyone in the world, have all the connections, but not have the talent. You ain't going to go nowhere. You can have all the talent in the world and not know anyone. You're not going to go anywhere. You need a mixture of both. So how do you do that? You got to grind.
I would say this though too. I think what kept you as your friend, I think, is that you've had so many offers to go to totally secular.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think because you stood up for what you believe, that's what made you who you are.
Yep,
and
100%.
These people because I've been in the room with you with a lot of these big producers and different people that have respected you because you stood your ground.
100%, man. What he's saying is so real.
About that, you know?
Yeah, and I also say that 90% of winning in anything, whether it be sports or television, is attitude.
Yeah.
And you come in here with that look of I'm the boss. I don't care what it is.
Yeah, he literally took over.
You own it before.
But he really is, though.
You own it before you actually
you.
get. And if you can get 20 dudes to shave their heads and be bald, then you know what? You probably should have been in sales too.
Yeah. Hey, man, I would say I could sell ice to an Eskimo, man. Right. But you know what's crazy? I want to touch on this because what Jimmy said real quick, it is crazy because I've been offered so many mainstream deals and all that. This ain't to brag. It's like I tell some people take it as I'm like, man, this is my life. I'm just giving you my life. The fact that I've been able to do some successful stuff, you know, I can't help it. That's amazing. But I've literally worked with, and sometimes I've been blown away. Like I've worked with the biggest producers, and I mean literally the biggest producers in music. You know, like he's saying, because I chose to turn down at one point $1 million deal with Priority Records to go out and just do regular gangsta rap. I know that I had the talent to hang with the best of the rappers back in my day. You know what I mean? And so my thing was, but I kept it going on what I was about, and that made the world look like, man, this is dope. What this guy's doing, this is crazy. Right. And so what happened was it brought the attention of people like the biggest producers literally in the history of music is Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Okay, Jimmy Jam is the president of the Grammys. That tells you how big they are. Right, yeah. They made Janet Jackson. They did all the Michael Jackson hits. They did the whole sound of the 80s. Right. Those guys called me to come and do some records with them. I worked with Yolanda Adams. They got me into the Fighting Temptations, which led me to writing 3 songs with Beyonce, all that stuff. Then you got Rodney Jerkins, who's Dark Child. You know, he did Michael Jackson's last 2 hits. He's done Brandy, all the Beyonce records, all that. Got to work with him. And then when I was doing my last record to retire, I had these guys called the Stereotypes. I don't know if you know who they are, but they just won Producers of the Year. They did 24 Karat Magic for Bruno Mars. Right. They do Justin Bieber, Pitbull. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Like a G6.
Yeah, exactly.
We went with you. Jimmy and I
that's right. Yeah. So they hit me up and they were like, "Yo, man, we want to work with you. You haven't done nothing in a long time. You need to put out a last record," because they knew I was going to retire from the hip hop side of it, which we'll get into that right now. And so they, so they came on and produced this whole last record with me along with this guy named Boski, and I've just been blessed. I mean, if I tell you the names that the people I've worked with, it's amazing, and it blows me away.
Before, with those guys I met you, I was surprised that those big dudes, there was 2 of them that grew up on your music.
Yeah, the Stereotype.
And you inspired them.
It's great. They used to come to my shows when they were 7 and 8 years old.
That's what's crazy. That I was like, wow, these dudes that are so big, is inspired and happy, and
awesome.
It's crazy.
And for you, and the people that don't know, Justin Bieber wrote a book, and he mentions
4 books.
T-Bone in the book that he got inspired by T-Bone.
Yeah.
You know
Katy Perry would come to the show. It's crazy because you just never know. I mean, I'm just doing what I do, but you never know who you're going to inspire. And for me, it's just like, wow, I honestly, it's not, that's what I'm saying. When people think like, when you've got to a certain level, you're not bragging. Like, look what to me, it's more humbling. Like, wow, man, I can't. But I remember when I went and I got the script for the movie with Beyonce, Fighting Temptations. Man, that night I went to my room. I was there. I mean, everyone was there. That movie has Cuba Gooding Jr., Mike Epps, Steve Harvey, the OJs, Angie Stone, Melba Moore, the OJs, Lil Zane, LaTanya Richardson, which is Samuel Jackson's wife, all these people. And so I just remember I was sitting in there and I was like, man, why am I even here? I'm not, you think I'm not even really good enough to be here, and I remember I went to my hotel room and I cried the whole night. Wow. Because I was so grateful to God, like, man, Lord, you could have chose anybody, but you chose me. Thank you, Lord. And it's a humbling. People don't understand when people brag and they're like, oh yeah, they're name dropping. I'm like, man, this guy really hasn't done nothing. I mean, if you're really talking about your life and you've done it, it's like, it's a humbling thing. It's not something that makes you say I'm better. Because one thing I do hate, there are those artists. And one thing I have always hated is prideful artists and prideful people when they walk in the room and they look down like, oh yeah, I'm not going to talk, I'm better than them, I'm this, this. Right. It's people don't realize this is who makes you. If they don't buy your records, if they don't support you, there is no T-Bone, there is no Beyonce, there is no JR if no one's watching your show, you know? So those are the people that you got to take the time out to love on and to say, hey man, what do you need? You need a picture, you need an autograph, and all that good stuff.
It's like Janet says, it's all in the attitude, and I think that's what T-Bone, it's in his attitude where, sometimes he brags too much when he calls me, but I was like, okay,
definitely, I'm a part of that.
Yeah, I keep him humble, and he already knows that. I'm the friend that keeps him humble.
But real quick, we're gonna go to a quick break because we're gonna talk about because all this that you've said, the one thing I got out of it, the reason why you're successful, because you're a passionate guy. And not just in your music, but you're passionate in everything that you do, because there's new stuff that you're doing now.
Right.
New things that are coming up because of your passion has opened up doors for you. So we'll be right back with T-Bone.